Good evening. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Your Health. My name is Museo. Omicron, first detected in South Africa in November this year, has been classified as a variant of concern by the World Health Organization. WHO says that there is now evidence that the variant was spreading significantly faster than the previous dominant version, Delta. With the Omicron variant surging across the world, scientists are working at a record pace to decode the mutation and enhance vaccines that offer immunity against it. Our guest today is Dr. John Kiiru, Head, Department of Laboratory Services at the Ministry of Health. And in this episode, we tell you what you need to know about the Omicron variant of coronavirus. You can be part of our conversation at KBC Channel 1 and at Purity_Museo. Use the hashtag YourHealth to ask us any questions and engage us on our social media platforms. Thank you so much, Dr. for being here. We do appreciate your presence.
Thank you.
We've seen a surge or an outbreak of, do I call it flu, among Kenyans. Is it flu or does it have anything to do with the coronavirus pandemic?
I do understand where the issue of flu is coming from.
Yeah.
It was a communication that had come purportedly from KEMRI. But KEMRI has, after that, explained on the issue that actually there could be a flu, yes, but the sample size that was analyzed was not good enough to declare a flu pandemic as being responsible for what is happening currently.
Right.
But for us to understand what is happening currently, we can make some inference. And the inference is, when you look at the cases of COVID-19, they are on the increase.
Yes.
You remember well, like four weeks ago, the positivity rate per day had dropped to up to 1%. I think there's a time it was even 0 point something.
Yeah.
But I think within this last week or within the last 1 week,
as high
it
as
had 29. So that tells you the cases of COVID-19 have really increased. We have also seen a commensurate increase in the number of hospitalized cases. Therefore, what I want to believe, whatever is happening right now, has nothing to do with the flu. And if it has anything to do with the flu, is something the effect of flu is very, very minimum. So what I would like to encourage our listeners is, if you have the so-called flu symptoms, go for COVID testing. But
what we've been seeing in terms of flu-like symptoms among many Kenyans has everything to do with the Omicron variant that was reported by the Ministry of Health 2 weeks ago.
So let me say that, as you already know, being tested by PCR or rapid testing, I cannot test you right now, I tell you have Omicron.
Yes.
Because the process of checking and understanding what you're actually suffering from, whether it is Omicron, whether it is Delta, it has a bit of bigger science than that. And the bigger science here is called sequencing. So what happened is that when this Omicron was reported in southern states or southern countries, it was actually, the first discovery was actually in Botswana. Then South Africa, of course, has a more robust kind of laboratories and surveillance system. So they have expanded the knowledge of Omicron. So, and of course, they had already spread to a number of countries in the south. So what then happened, as usual, when we have a new variant declared in the world, and it's a variant of concern or a variant of interest, which I think we'll be defining later, what Kenya normally does, it puts some temporary measures just to try and minimize initial entry. The initial entry, the amount and the number of people who initially enter a country bearing a variant are very, very important on the progression of the pandemic. So actually, what happened is that the ministry put immediate measures to start screening for this variant, and for sure, it is from that initial stock of passengers who are arriving in Kenya from the southern states, that we are able to get the first Omicron. Now, I think to come back to your question, is that since then we have been analyzing, but the analysis time is a bit long. So all data is not in. However, going by the kind of symptoms we are seeing in patients, the number of cases that we are seeing per day, it is very much in concordance with what other countries that are reporting Omicrons are seeing. As a country, should we trust what other countries are doing? Because before you enter into this country, there are very strict rules that you have to produce a negative certificate. But again, we had cases of Omicron imported into the country. I presume that these people had been tested in their countries and they had negative certificates, or what could have gone wrong? Thank you. That's a very good question, very valid. However, my response can be very technical, but I'll try not to be very technical. Let me also say this. When a new variant comes, there are two types of variants. We have variant of interest. So we look at the variant, we see how it is, it's the way it is arranged in terms of genetics. Therefore, we realize this could be an issue tomorrow. The variant of interest. Variant of concern, we look at the variant and the way, how do you know this is a variant? It is varying from the original strain. That's why we call it a variant. How do we know it has varied? Because there are some changes in its genetic makeup, which we call the chromosome or RNA, and we see different points that have changed from already what was there to something else. Now, depending on what changes have happened, a variant can be serious. So such variants, we call them variants of concern. So the only way to know that something is variant of concern, you do sequencing. But let me say this. This variant that we are talking about, the Omicron, has so many mutations. The changes are so many. Yet, the gene that has changed is the gene which the PCR kits detect. Do we have an end to this pandemic? Do we expect other variants? We had Delta, now we have Omicron. Do we expect another? And when, as a scientist, do you think the coronavirus will mutate and come to an end? I will use a layman's language, very basic language to answer that. But I want our viewer to understand. A human being takes 18, 20 years to replicate, to get a baby, okay? A bacteria takes 20 minutes to divide to get babies, okay? A virus takes hours. So within an hour, a virus could have replicated 10, 20, 30 times. Now, when you're talking a date which is 24 hours, the virus could have undergone 1,000 replications. So what am I saying? The viruses, especially the ones that have genetic makeup called RNA, replicate very fast. Now, that replication, it is copying. The reason why you very much look close to your father or your mother is because there are some genes that have been copied from your mother and your father. Now, that copying, the more stringent that copying is, the more likely you resemble your father or your mother. Now, what then happens for viruses? Because they replicate very fast, the copying is not perfect. It generates a lot of errors. Those errors are what we call mutations. Now, these mutations can be of two types. Good mutations that good for the virus, that the virus keep. Maybe it allows it to infect many more people. Or bad mutations, it lowers the infectivity rate of the virus, and the virus is no longer able to distribute. Therefore, the reason why we have a lot of mutations and a lot of variants is because this virus replicates very fast. That fast replication, then what happens is it ends up creating many errors. Now, when you have one progeny or one population of viruses with many errors in regard to the original strain, that strain has diverted. It has varied. We call it a variant. That means we expect more mutations and more variants Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you remember, so far we have seen a number of mutations.
Yeah.
So we are not, I no longer like calling variants based on the countries, but for the purposes of the viewer, I can still call them UK, South African, India strain. You remember the South African strain came, it went out like a bushfire, but you remember also what was happening in South America, in Brazil, very many deaths. And that was a Brazilian strain. So a strain, depending on the way it has mutated, can be very severe. So the effect of mutations of variants can be two ways. Either very fast spread or very severe, even if spreading slowly, or it can also be spreading very fast and very severe. Now, when you look at Delta, Delta came, it spread a bit fast, but not as fast as Omicron, but it was quite severe, and it killed a lot of people. Now, what we are seeing with Omicron, the spread is super fast, very, very fast. Within the first 10 days, this variant had already gone to over 18 countries, the first 5 days. Now, but however, what we are seeing, people are not getting so sick. The reason why people are not getting so sick and deaths are not many could be two. Partially because many people are already vaccinated, or maybe the virus itself is not good enough to cause severe infection.
So why is Omicron a variant of concern?
Something can be a variant of concern because of two things. One, it is killing if it kills a lot of people. Number two, if it spreads to a lot of people. Now, what happens when it spreads? You may not be hospitalized, but you become weak and sleep. Those are man-hours lost.
Why Omicron? Why did the scientists settle on calling it Omicron? How is it different from the immediate variant that we've seen?
Absolutely.
That's the Delta
Yes.
variant.
Now, as I had already mentioned, the original stock of COVID-19, we knew how it looked like genetically. So we used that as a reference strain. So anything that deviates from there, it's a variant. Now, a lot of people think we have only had 5 variants. We have not had 5 variants. The Omicron is the letter O of the Greek alphabet.
Yeah.
And of course, although the Greek alphabet has more letters than the English one, I'm not very sure about that, but we are on letter O. We are actually at the end of the alphabet, towards the end. Soon we'll be at omega. So what it tells you, although we have had very many letters corresponding to variants, 5 of them have been major because these are variant of concern. Others have just been variants that disappear. Others of interest, they never go very far. But the variants of concern have been 5 to 6. Now, we are likely to have many more. Possibly we'll start combining alpha, beta. You hear about gamma, Omicron, because now we have already exhausted the letters. So what happens when is chronology? The moment you discover one variant, you give it the nearest letter, then like that. So at the end of the day, we'll finish the letters. If more variants continue arising, we'll have to come with a new way, just like the way we came with a new way of registering our cars.
How is it different from the previous ones?
When you look at the number of mutations that were in Delta compared to what is in Omicron, Omicron has very many mutations. I can't remember properly, but I don't think the Delta had even 20 mutations. This current one has anywhere between 28 mutations or changes to 39, and they're increasing. So those changes in the genetic makeup translate to changes in the structure of the virus. Those changes also translate to other things. How easy the virus will be able to infect people, okay? Or how easy and how severe the infections will be. So the mutations in the Omicron have translated to faster spread, maybe not necessarily to severe outcomes. Now, it's also very important to note this. People are saying, well, we are not seeing a lot of people with with breathing problem, oxygen and so on. But however, I would like you to understand that Omicron has come when COVID vaccination has been rolled out. And what COVID vaccination does, although it does not stop you from getting an infection, it reduces the severity of the infection. That can be the need for hospitalization, the need for oxygen, death, and other severe outcomes. Some people have been asking, why should I take a vaccine when I'm getting infected?
Yeah.
The very fact is that, yes, you'll get an infection, but the good thing is that you'll not get very sick because your body has been primed and programmed and trained how to deal with an infection.
Yeah.
You'll not go into a heart attack. You'll not go into heart failure. You may not lose your taste. You may not lose your smell. You may not diarrhea like what we have seen with other pathogens. You may be weak. You may be having a running nose. So those symptoms very closely start resembling the normal flu. And I think that is why a lot of people, when they were told there is a flu moving around, they became quiet and contented. However, I would request majority of or all our viewers, if you have any symptom that look like flu, before you get a confirmation that it is not COVID, assume you have COVID. Go and get tested. The reason is, this week, we are proceeding to festivities. We are going to Christmas. People are going to congregate. People are going up country. You'll take this bag to your parents at home, to your grannies. Some of them may not even be vaccinated, and you'll kill them. Because don't think the way you have reacted because you are vaccinated is the way your grandfather or grandmother will react when they are not vaccinated. Even if they are vaccinated, remember they are older. So what we are trying to say here, get vaccinated, get other people vaccinated, still continue observing the rules. Social distancing, masking, wearing of masks, isolation if you think you have symptoms, and getting tested. But the most important, vaccination.
So the fact that it has over 28 mutations, Omicron, does it make it, how does it spread? Is it airborne? Is it droplets like the other variants that we've had? So
the way the variant spreads is like any other COVID-19. COVID-19 is not airborne. Airborne means if I'm here and there's nobody here who is sick, the virus particle can be blown by wind and it comes here. That is what we call an airborne virus. An example, measles. When there's a measles outbreak, even if you hide your child and they are not vaccinated, so for airborne viruses, isolation and quarantine do not count. You still get infected. But this one is transmitted through air and droplets, and also person to person. That is why we talk about 1.5 meter distance. If you are beyond that, the virus cannot go beyond it because it's not properly airborne. So the transmission mode of COVID, of Omicron, is the same with Delta as Southern, but however, there is a difference. The Omicron, it has a key, and that key is called what is called the spike. When you look at the virus, there are some proteins that come out of the surface, like the porcupine or the hedgehog spikes. Those spikes are important because they are the ones that open the cells for you to get infected. So what the mutation in Omicron has done, they have allowed the virus to spread to your cells faster. When it spreads faster, you also have a bigger chance of transmitting that virus to another person.
And as we wind up now, Omicron right now, it's not causing severe illness, but would you say that since it's continually mutating, it has the potential to cause severe illness?
Let us not sit happy and contented that, well, Omicron, after all, is not a bad thing, because we don't know whether tomorrow it will mutate, then it becomes the bad strain, it becomes fast spreader, and it also becomes severe. For now, we are lucky. It doesn't seem to cause a lot of severity, but mutation is continuous. We don't know until when this virus will continue mutating. We are like, maybe the Omicron is the silent easy bag, maybe the real killer is ahead. How can we stop it? You get vaccinated. When you get vaccinated, what happens? You slow down the rate of replication. When the rate of replication becomes lower, the virus is able to correct any error it does when it is copying the RNA or the genetic makeup. Therefore, the chances of arising a new variant becomes less. So once you are vaccinated, you slow down the virus because it's struggling. Your body is trying to capture it. You slow down the rate of replication, and then therefore reduce the rate of the variant arising and emerging.
And this variant, I'm not sure whether the vaccine that we are getting is acting against the Omicron, because I've seen the Center for Disease Control suggesting or recommending that countries should now begin, those who are yet to give booster shots to their citizens, they should do the same.
Every country has its own healthcare mechanisms. I can assure you the Ministry of Health is actually discussing this. We are in consultation, the CS, the PS, the DG, and other stakeholders. Kenya is looking at the data, also looking at what other countries are doing. If there will be a need for a booster, it will be. But let me say this, and I have repeated this many times, that a vaccine does not stop you from getting an infection. The beauty about it, even if you are getting an infection from Omicron, and many of us will actually get infected if we are not careful. However, the good thing is we are still seeing people who are vaccinated faring far much better than people who are not vaccinated. Therefore, remember what I told you, the vaccine it's not only there to stop you from an infection, but also prepares your body to deal with the infection. Therefore, I would still recommend people, even if we are getting infected when we have the vaccine has another function. Besides stopping the virus to getting into you, it is still helping your body to deal with any infection in future.
Dr. John Kiiru, we have to wrap it up, but thank you so much for this informative conversation that you've agreed to be part of. We do appreciate.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and that's where we bring the show to an end. Thank you for watching. Remember, vaccination does not stop you from getting the virus. What stops you is putting on the mask, washing your hands, and of course, socially distancing. Let's stay safe from COVID-19. My name is Purity Museo. I'll see you again next week. God willing, stay safe, and of course, keep this interactive. Tell us some of the issues that you feel we should discuss, and trust you me, we will have you covered. Enjoy the rest of your viewing, and God bless.